Ken's question says, our household income is about $200K.
Nice.
And my wife and I, who are in our mid-30s, have each been able to max our pre-tax 403B and 457 accounts and Roth IRAs, which is incredible. Good job, guys. But are not doing any after tax. Is it okay to have 2 out of 3 of the buckets? How should they think about that?
Well, is it okay? Of course, Ken. It's okay. Like there's nothing. You're saving incredibly. Now, here's what I don't know. When someone said, first of all, mid-30s making $200,000, that's awesome. Like that's good. Amazing. You have, I don't know, like high, and again, I get so frustrated when you guys poo-poo, like, oh, that's nothing out here in Southern California. Like, okay, it's objectively, it's a lot of money. Now, if you're in a higher cost of living area, it might not carry you as far than if you're in a lower cost of living area. But to be in your mid-30s making that kind of income is pretty stinking stellar. So Ken said that we're maxing out our 403Bs and 457s. This is what's unclear to me. Does one of you have a 403B and one of you have a 457? Or are you both educators and you both have 403Bs and then you both have 457s? Because if you think through that, because we see this,
all of them.
457 is a really, really interesting type of retirement plan. Because generally, like if you had access to a 401k and a 403B and maybe another 401k, you only get one bite at the salary deferral apple. You can only put $23,000 across those different plan types, no matter how many different plans you have access to. 457s are a little bit different. They do not aggregate that salary deferral limit. So even if you're doing a 403B and you're putting $23,000 into it and you have access to a 457, you can do another $23,000. So that's potentially $46,000 if my math holds that you could have for just one person going in. Well, if spouse number 1 is doing that and then spouse number 2 is doing that, that's 46 and 46. That's what, $92,000? My math's still holding.
A lot of money.
And then you're saying you're maxing out your Roth. Well, now we're doing another 7,000 and 7,000. So that's another 14. Now we're like in 6-figure land on savings. That's like 50% savings rate. So you're crushing it. You're killing it. That's awesome. Now you have to begin defining, okay, once I get past 25%, once I'm saving my 25%, which if you're doing that, you're like certainly in that hyper-accumulation step 7, you got to define what's the end goal. Like I have to begin with the end in mind. So am I someone who thinks that I might want to retire early? Well, if that's the case, you do have 457 assets. Now, one thing to like keep in, because I'm seeing like Megan's glaring at me right now. One thing you want to keep in mind is if you're doing a 457, you do get access to those dollars early. If you're doing a 457 Roth though, it's a little bit different. You don't get access to the earnings on the 457 Roth early. So even if you're doing pre-tax versus Roth matters in how you are building up those accounts. But you have to define, okay, when do I think I'm going to need these dollars? Am I going to retire early? Or what do I think that I might need these dollars for? Some people get into hyperaccumulation. They say, hey, my goal is, I know that one day I want to relocate or I want to have a second home or I want to do something that's going to require capital. In that situation, if you're someone who is in this kind of saving situation as Ken, it may very well make sense. Okay, maybe I can back down some of the pre-tax savings and I can begin funding that after-tax account so that I can begin building up that bridge money. But if Ken and Ken's spouse decide, you know what, no, we're not going to retire early. We're going to have a normal retirement. Maybe we're educators, so we're going to have a pension. The pension's going to kick in around 55 years old, and we're going to have tons of cash flow coming in, and then we're going to be able to get to our assets, no problem. And a lot of these 403Bs and 47s are Roth. If you're in that situation, then you might not have to switch to after tax. This is why personal finance is so personal. You can have two completely different people who are in very similar situations, but depending on their goals, the strategy that they implement might be very different. So what you want to think through is what makes the most sense for me. And this is one of those areas where, again, mid-30s, I don't know like where your asset level or your asset base is, but this kind of gets nuanced, and the decisions that you make can have long-term impacts, not negatively. It's not like you're not at pass or fail, but you probably are at optimize or not optimize, like best use of funds and maybe slightly suboptimal use of funds. This is where thinking about taking the relationship to the next level could be a fantastic solution, because what you can do when you sit down with an advisor is walk through, okay, here's my vision, here's my plan, here's what I want the future to look like, here's the goal, here's the dream. what are the steps that I ought to take right now to begin moving towards that ultimate dream? If you want to know more about that, I encourage you. We have a great thing on the web on moneyguy.com/resources. The 8 questions.
Yes, 8 questions to ask your financial advisor.
Yep, it's a great resource. You should go check that out, and that will give you at least a tool to use as you begin interviewing professionals to figure out who might make sense to go on this journey with me.
Absolutely. And then if you're interested in learning about the services we provide, you can go to the Become a Client button on our website as well. So it's all there for you just to help you learn and think through, is this a step you might want to take in the future? Really good answer. Great question, Ken. Appreciate you being here.
Well, I got to say too. So Ken said we both have 403B and 457 nurses, so we're just under 50%. That's so ballin'. That is so ballin'.
This is not a success fail question. That's awesome.
And the username was Ken Gritty Jr. If that's your real name, that's awesome. But if that's a play on the kid, it's amazing.
I wondered that too, but I decided to just go with Ken.